Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are, people watching later after we complete the broadcast. It's 12 noon on the west coast of Canada, where Blake and I are located. My co-host Blake McKenzie. I'm Rachel Scose, and welcome everybody. Boy, oh boy, Blake, we're just concluding Christmas, and we did a show where we looked at predictions for what might be happening in 2026. I don't know if you had the extraction of Maduro on your bingo card, but to actually go in, grab the guy, haul him out of there. I mean, unbelievable to wake up to that news story. But there's so many stories going right now. A big one right now is Greenland with Trump's Monroe Doctrine. So we're highlighting the Monroe Doctrine on today's program. I think we never are, if for us looking into the crystal ball idea, I think it's getting pretty easy to see where all this is going. I think, yeah, and nothing can stop it. I don't think anything can stop it. But let's have a cheerful a little moment to welcome Greenland into the president's sphere of influence. There's so many good things happening. Hold on, let's get the song going. Now, this is something I'm just thrilled with. Okay, we got that. Let me go. I got to be careful with this my everything. I got so many windows going today. I've got this much room on our own channel. I could like accidentally access right the hell out. Okay, well let's just leave it at this scale and run the clip. Okay, get the volume up. It's up. Here we go.
This land is our land. It once was Greenland, but Denmark lost it because they're wieners, and so Trump bought it and made it green again. Greenland is now part of the USA.
Okay, so that's kind of a funny little meme.
This land is our land. It once was green.
Boom. Okay, there we go. Like I say, I've got so many of these things. I want to welcome my good friend Rockin' Ronnie, Ron Beaudry, big name in the vinyl community, music and all that. But he's also a patriot. He loves America, and I just happy to have him here. I think you're going to enjoy the show, Ron. It's Blake and myself covering the stories, and of course, the capture of Maduro was fantastic. We're seeing people. This is interesting too because there's a division in MAGA. Boy, oh boy, I don't see it as problematic. I think we're going to control for it. I think everything's going good. But Rand Paul is really up in arms. He's saying you can't go to war without Congress's approval. Well, I got news for you, Rand Paul. We aren't at war with Venezuela. The president went in, made an arrest, caught the bad guy. Bad boys, what you going to do when they come for you? And they dragged him off, and this guy's going to go to trial. So good things are happening, and I have no problem with the president going in, extracting this guy who was illegitimate in the first place. They stole the election.
Sounds familiar.
We're going to learn about a lot about stolen elections, not just in the United States, and not just in the United States on the federal level, but corruption on state level. You're going to see it. Lord help us, perhaps even at the mayoral level on cities, because a lot of the World Economic Forum globalist policies are sending money and directing money right down into the local area. And I think it's part of the reason why we see bike lanes wherever you go. It's like this, you're in the same city no matter where you go in the world. Oh, there's the obligatory green bike lane. Who said that? Who put that in motion? So let me get rid of some of these things we got here. Here's another one. Let's cover this. This is in our predictions for 2026. And we're going to go back to Greenland because that's a huge story. But it's this first thing.
It's all interrelated. That's
everything's freaking. But one of the predictions we said is we're going to see the end of the Ukraine war in 2026. So here's a clip that relates to that. All right, we go
with Russia. And so
hold on, you go back a little. All
what
right.
we should expect is really a finalization of a couple agreements. One is the Coalition of the Willing, which is about 50 allied countries, many of them in NATO, are going to, agree to a certain security framework for Ukraine, and so is the United States, both as part of that Coalition of the Willing and separately. And so that negotiation is going to be finalized. I'm guessing that those documents will ultimately be entered into very soon between Ukraine and the Coalition of the Willing and all the partners. And at the same time, that then frees up the Ukrainians and President Zelensky to go and make the final deal as part of the 20-point plan with Russia. And so, we're really very far down the road. This is a great development, and we could be on the cusp of a peace deal. And so, while we continue to pray for peace, we're also doing all the hard work to make sure we can sustain that peace.
Interesting little flag, and behind that picture of Zelensky, 2 Ukrainian flags and a Canadian flag right behind
And the
him.
Canadian flag. Well, Canada, that's holy shit. I mean, talk about a story in Canada right now. Let me roll that up because it's all it's
all interrelated.
It's all interrelated, ladies and gentlemen. And I do apologize if the broadcast appears a little scatterblasted today. I got so much stuff up here, so much is going on. This guy's kind of controversial. I have he comes on so strong. This next fellow I'm going to quote from, that I almost worry that he's a plant, and that even going near this guy could dirty us up because by implication, because he's so bold and so out there decrying Canadian government. But we had a member of parliament, Chrystia Freeland. This is a WEF darling. She worked for Soros before. A classic picture of her in the early days with Justin Trudeau, introducing Justin Trudeau to George Soros.
She was his biographer.
A bad guy who needs no introduction, as the president would say. He's a bad guy. Yeah. But we got this here. And let me make it large. So, well, Chrystia, it doesn't exactly work that way. Your Highness of pierogies and cocaine, you don't get to choose. You see, there it is, right? Okay, well, maybe a little inflammatory. You don't get to choose when you resign as a member of parliament. So this lady is like a congresswoman in Canada, our equivalent, and she just took a job for Zelensky while holding a seat representing the Canadian government.
He would have been arrested under the Logan Act like that.
This is a massive conflict of interest. It's supposed to be immediate, and you must return all salary, apologize to your constituents and Canadians, and then stop lobbying for Canada. Otherwise, you're a foreign asset in absolute conflict of interest, and now technically a war criminal, according to Russia, a sovereign nation that is about to defeat your homeland. Correct. No more Canadian money should pass through those dirty fat paws of yours without a detailed down to the penny audit. We all know this is corruption, that you sold out Canadians once more, and that you belong in prison. I am already laughing at your future stay in a Siberian gulag. Bush pig. And here she is. And okay, oh my God, just all sorts of trouble. So we'll get rid of her.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, sorry, folks watching. We didn't want to ruin your day with that picture.
It is just crazy. Now I got something else going on here, Blake, and I got to try and stop that. So let's start hearing from you while I go hunt down where this video link is coming from.
Well, let's go through the list here, starting with Greenland. Greenland's already protected by U.S. military anyways. There's a U.S. military base there. It's been there, since World War II. And really, the defense of Greenland is still under the auspices of the United States government, and has been, and for nearly 80 years now. So, it's basically the last chunk of land that the Europeans hold some sway in North America, outside of their complete manipulation and control of the Canadian government, which we'll go into a whole other story on that. But yeah, when you're seeing what's happening there, what you're seeing happening in the Ukraine, I mean, with Chrystia Freeland, this is Canada's corruption at the ultimate stage, where they just don't care Their corruption is laid out in front of everybody. They're being caught left, right, and center. This has been going on for a few years, but it's intensifying. Nothing is changing. Nothing is changing because they're on a course. They're on a war, as we said before. Canada is the trenches for the EU, WF, and the CCP on the border of the United States. That's why the focus has been on Carney to try and change things. That's why Trump's got his eye on Carney. Why he wants Carney there? You know why? Because, you know what? If you got Poilievre there, he's not the guy that's the insider with the globalists and the WF. Carney is a general with those guys. This guy carries 3 passports. He works for these guys. He is the guy that you want. If you want a room and tell him how shit's going to go down, that's the guy you're going to talk to.
Poilievre is
not
the guy either, though.
He's not.
I don't like Poilievre at all. I don't like that guy.
No,
I don't want that guy. That's me.
I'm not defending Poilievre. I'm just saying he's not in the same ballpark.
He's not in the same level. No.
Exactly.
Correct.
If you want power versus power discussions, you take a general from your opposition in the world and you want him in the room. You don't want some guy who's like, he's a guy from Saskatchewan. But he has no power. He has no power. He's no
agree.
Influence,
My problem with Poilievre is just all the pandering and the bullshit. You got to be like Trump and go, yay. I don't care if you're from Somalia. Go say aren't good people. I don't like them. I don't want to get rid of the Somalians. He has no problem saying stuff like that. But we got Poilievre dressed up like a Hindu going, piki tiki taki tak, in the words of the great 10th guru, we honor him. And I'm like, fuck off with that. Don't do it.
Well,
I'm sick of that.
Canada doesn't have any leadership that is that would follow that line. And the problem that Canada has is that we're basically governed by 2 provinces, Ontario and Quebec. Everybody else is you're just hewers of wood and drawers of water for the rest of them. And of course, they're incredibly aligned with the WF and the globalists and their central banking cartels tied to the big power brokers within the asset management class. They take the money. So I said this unholy alliance that's coming. But my point is that he was one of the governors of the board of the WEF. He is a George Soros, Klaus Schwab inner sanctum dude. He sits with them. He's the guy who gets to help call the shots and create actions, because Trudeau was falling apart with Freeland. They were losing it. He was brought in to bring it back in, dig in deep for these globalists. We're on the border. They knew Trump had won. Notice that's when it happened. Trudeau didn't have a chance in hell of winning. They were losing that. They didn't want to have an easy pushover in Canada, and Canada has become the battleground politically. I'm not saying like a physical battleground, but it is infected with this globalist elite, this allied to this old world European colonial powers of banking cartels that run down in Central America and run down in the Caribbean. It's the same group who have put all their eggs into the CCP basket, right? And that's the thing. China is their play, right? We know that. That's the play.
Yeah, we know that because they capture Maduro, that they aren't sending any more oil. There's a tanker there. I just saw a picture somebody was posting saying not a single tanker has left Venezuela with oil for China since Trump took Maduro out. So,
and I think Venezuela is part of that. They're part of that international order that has created, and they utilize their useful idiots, their shock troops on the ground, or like the groups we see here, like Antifa, these pro-Hamas protesters are all paid actors to create chaos. They get a handful of useful idiots to show up with them and cause chaos. It is the Antifa type paid people that are taking money to cause problems on the ground. BLM, same thing. This was all activated, paid for, and now it's all coming out. Is now we're seeing from that relation what's happened to Venezuela. That was the shot around the world. Actually, in my opinion, Maduro gone. America is here. The Western Hemisphere, it's back to 1823. Monroe Doctrine, anchoring it home. It's all coming down to that.
Yeah, we're going
to. The world is
really expound on that.
Well, we're seeing a tripolar world now. right?
Yeah,
It's no longer.
I've got a map. I got a map of your tripolar. I got an
Oh, okay.
actual frickin' image. Putin, Z, and Trump, and it's like boom, 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 and it
Yeah.
couldn't be illustrated more clearly. But so I'll bring that up a little later. I got so much. So you can't believe what my screen looks like. I'm just I'm just absolutely desperate to get rid of some of these links here. So let's share this one. This is more on Chrystia Freeland and kind of who she is and what her resume is all about. Let me see. Can you read this good, Blake, without me popping out? All right. Let's just map this out slowly. This is from Wealth Moose. Great name, good Canadian name. Wealth Moose with superhero little Canadian flag on there. Chrystia Freeland sits on the World Economic Forum Board of Trustees. Mark Carney sat on WF's governance board until Jan 25. Freeland, Deputy PM and Finance Minister under Justin Trudeau. While she was the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, she was also on the George Soros. She was on the WF Board of Governors. Unbelievable. Carney's now Prime Minister, shipped in like Blake says. Freeland stepped aside in the Liberal leadership race, clearing the lane for Carney. Carney's the godfather to Freeland's son. Now on the capital side, Carney is the chair of Brookfield Asset Management. Mark Wiseman, a BlackRock executive, is Carney's advisor. And now he's Canada's ambassador to the U.S. BlackRock is invested in defense and reconstruction in Ukraine. How convenient. Brookfield is invested in Ukrainian energy infrastructure. BlackRock owns part of Brookfield. And now the finale. Freeland is appointed economic advisor to Vladimir Zelensky. Independent actors, pure coincidence, total normal governance. See how it works now? Boom, boom, boom. Don't forget, Freeland is still a sitting member of parliament, even as we read this report. Not only did she lack the decency to resign her seat, it's a blatant conflict of interest. So more on Freeland. Just crazy. But let's go spring back because Blake, you mentioned this to me. The Promethean report just did a great analysis on all what's happening here. So I've got a link from them very quickly, and this says a lot. And then I'm going to turn it back to Blake. This is from Susan Kokinda, who's part of that. They're out of I think they're out of North Dakota or Minnesota. I'm not sure exactly where they're based, but she's lovely, and her partner in crime over there, Brenda. They're just excellent. They're just genius little old ladies that have got their eye right on everything.
With a lot of experience, a lot of background.
A lot of background dating back to the 1970s for them politically. While everyone screams regime change over Venezuela, which it isn't, the Toronto Globe and Mail just admitted Venezuela's fate is a warning to Canada. If you think this is another Bush-era operation, the former head of MI6 disagrees. He says it's not regime change. It's something else entirely. Trump just put Mark Carney and the City of London's 50-year drug financing operation in the crosshairs, and Canada, the Crown's biggest North American outpost and an axis of evil towards the United States, just realized that they are next. The real target, Mark Carney. The Monday Brief, while you watch Venezuela, Trump quietly put Canada on notice. And I could not be happier about this. I could not be happier that Canada is put on notice.
Was that me right below it?
I'm not sure. I took it out so quickly. So Blake, please take this on and maybe reiterate what you said right below there, if you can remember what you.
I can't remember because I was posting like a madman over the weekend.
Yeah, well, ladies
explosive.
and gentlemen that are watching the program, and we love Kimba. Hey, Kimba. But it's just nuts. Things are happening so incredibly quickly. Information is changing. Apparently, breaking news, just as we went to air, Denmark and Greenland officials are asking to meet with Marco Rubio. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things we predicted was Greenland I don't think we went out and said it's necessarily going to happen so quick that it's going to come to America, but it may be happening quicker than we thought. Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, well, that post that you just had put up was kind of explaining the broader theme of what's happening in the world, and just like we were talking about earlier, and have even before this came down, is that America is back. America is back, really emphasizing the 1823 Monroe Doctrine, though people are now calling it the Monroe Doctrine
Yeah.
because Donald Trump. But essentially, that's what he's doing. And you know what? Right after that came up, we were posting about it. Actually, I posted to Tim Pool because Tim Pool posted up that, oh, this is all about oil and nothing else. And I was like, I explained it in detail what it was. And all of a sudden, my post went viral on his post.
Yeah.
I was like shocked. And
Good.
but it's a bigger, larger picture. As you said, this was globalist versus the United States. The globalists have put all their eggs into destabilizing the US control and moving over the means of production and all that to China, all the investment money. So that's why you're seeing all those names around Ukraine and all that. So you got on the east, they saw Russia. They wanted to break Russia up. That's the point. They're trying to break Russia so that Russia becomes another resource-rich area that the Europeans can extract from. Canada has been an extraction colony for Britain since we were established, and it's never changed. We are still run by the crown, even though people will argue, we have the 1982 Constitution. That Constitution isn't worth crap. It is a piece of paper that was voted on. It was never brought into full effect because Quebec didn't sign it. It doesn't exist. It was an act of Parliament. It is not a true Constitution, which is an act of the people. It's where the ground begins, and you build everything on top of that. In this case, it's kind of like up here. It's in the midsection, and all underneath it is the British North America Act and the English crown control of Canada, and which English had control of many of the islands, as we're hearing about in the Caribbean, and of course a lot of European influence in South America, Spain, even France, Germany's even had influence there with Argentina, et cetera, et cetera. So these colonial powers are still trying to hold on to that. But then you've got the newer rising powers, and that was, of course, China in this last 100 years. And they want a piece of what's going on. Of course, the Soviet Union played a part of that, the rise of communism. So we're seeing all of these pieces are all coming together on who are the actors trying to control who. And they're trying to still use North and South and Central America as the mineral rich, the resource rich area that the rest of the world can draw off of. Much what they've done to Africa. I feel sorry for Africa because Africa has become the area where the world is tearing it apart. And essentially they have no power, in Africa. So really they're trying to turn North, South, and Central America into a giant Africa. That was the whole point, is that they would control it and manipulate it for their own resources. So these old powers, we're talking hundreds of years, still have their tentacles into it. These guys know how to do psyops. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. We talk about Promethean action, talking about how the influence of the British intelligence service working to destroy Donald Trump because this was undermine. Well, destroy him. They tried to put him in jail. They wanted to wreck him. It went all the way to calling him out, all kinds of things. If they couldn't get him to lose the election and disappear, it was scorched earth. Let's see if we could destroy him, to the point of taking a shot at him. And I can guarantee that's all going to come out. All of this stuff as we're watching, all the election interference that has gone on, the cheating, all run by this consolidation of interest. It's the only way it can be done. You can only do it with professionals who know what they're doing at that level. It's not disorganized. It was centralized control of that operation. And it's happening in countries that they want to do, especially in the Western Hemisphere, Brazil, obviously with Maduro, with Colombia, we're seeing that. But then we saw fight back, right? Argentina fights back. Recently, Chile is fought back. They've got their people in. There's the signs are back. We may see Mexico finally open the doors and say, we're done with these cartels running our country.
Something
Apparently
will
Trump.
happen. Mexico is
Some,
going to fall too. Do we know?
well,
It's
well,
domino theory, for the good guys this time around, and you can see it.
yeah,
Everything's starting to coalesce. You're
yeah.
starting to see the beginning. The beginning, where if the beginning of what Trump calls the golden age. Greenland is going to become American. It's going to be an American property sooner than later. Canada's is right in the crosshairs as well. There's no doubt about it.
Well, and things are going to change with that, because I said with all of these countries, let's put it this way: we're not looking for regime change to go and become governors of those areas. And Trump has no interest to create a government of the United States to run Venezuela, to run this. He wants a coalition of countries that share the same values. That's simply it. And a protection over the Western Hemisphere, so that the Asian hemisphere, the European hemisphere, the Middle Eastern hemisphere, India, Asia Minor, all these areas stop trying to manipulate us and controlling us in the Western hemisphere. And we talked about this decades ago. I think you and I may have had this conversation in the 1990s, that north-south is the trading routes.
Yeah, always has been, yeah.
And you know what? We can trade with those people. But the point is, you want to trade with those countries in Europe and in Asia and Africa or wherever they are on a country-by-country basis. None of this multilateral approach where you've got these consolidated powers, which are easily manipulated by dark black hat interests. And that's what this is going on. It's a geopolitical shift like we have never seen probably since the era of World War II. I mean, literally, we're at that level.
We talked earlier in the show about the map, and here's where we go. And this is from Kirill Dmitriev. This is an interesting cat. He's always quoting Q, the Q intel. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Blake's not a Q person. I'm here to tell you I am. And it's really interesting because the State Department just said kind of like Patriots in control. That's an old Qism from a way back in 2017. We know what it means. So those kind of comms, you watch Dan Scavino, you watch Scavino's posts, watch him like a hawk. That guy is dropping comms left, right, and center. Whether it's real or not, the Trump administration is aware of it and uses it for their own purposes. They certainly don't shy away from it. President Trump has repeatedly reposted it. But here's Kirill, and Kirill is this former Russian guy, Russian direct investment fund guy. So anyway, let me find again, so many things open. The era of redrawing maps of influence. EU is carefully monitoring. Here is a funny map of how power in the world is now divided. Except it's not a joke. It really is divided like this. The rules-based international order is truly dead. Me. There's Trump. Putin over here, he's got all this. And then you've got Z with his part of the world. This is the geopolitical power, the balance of power. I love this. Me, Trump. This is what I get. They're like playing the game of Risk, but
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Risk. It's like it really is.
It's totally like Risk. Let's share this one instead. Rubber Duck goes, the new republic of fuck around and find out. So that kind of gives you there. The Republic of the United States of America, basically mine. Again, reinforcing this image, this vision of American control there. Very powerful imagery indeed. And then I'll share this one as the final one in this little series. James Wood, has there ever been an action by President Trump that wasn't blocked, subverted, or ignored by Democrats? The oil in Venezuela would have been under the control of China in our hemisphere. Trump checkmated them. So, of course, Democrats are losing their minds. They hate America. President Trump is out here playing 4D chess. Let's click this and play the little clip for you, boys and girls. Here's a little map of things. Okay, I guess I can reply.
After capturing Nicolas Maduro and transporting him to a U.S. federal prison to face charges, Trump announced the U.S. will run the country until a safe transition is possible. But what if the U.S. never leaves? The Petro reset breaks OPEC's global price monopoly. By seizing Venezuela's 300 billion barrels of oil, the world's largest reserves, the U.S. crashed slashes gas prices to a historic $1 at the pump. This logistics miracle slashes shipping costs by 70%, cutting the price of groceries and goods by 30% overnight. Inflation vanishes as the energy tax is deleted, triggering a surge in domestic manufacturing. The currency collapse is solved by replacing the bolivar with the US dollar, stabilizing cost while zeroing savings. As a migration reverse brings 7.7 million refugees back to rebuild $400 billion in decaying infrastructure. The Southern Command expansion dismantles gangs and rebels, cutting crime by 90% as Venezuela becomes a de facto 51st state. This superpower pivot evicts Russia and China, freezing $60 billion in debt and granting the U.S. total military and economic hegemony over South America.
Yeah,
All right. Pretty interesting. What do you think of that one, Blake?
I'm kind of 50-50 on that.
What do you like about it? What don't you like about it?
It's missing a lot of pieces, and I know they're trying to do it all in a minute.
Well, it's a little.
I don't
fat,
think the U.S. has any interest in turning Venezuela into a 51st state. I mean, it says de facto, but I think they're just saying another free nation with similar values that not going to, turn into a socialist hellhole, which has really been manipulated by the global elite to kind of do that. But he's missed the whole other side of that equation and who the other enemies are. He's saying China and Russia were not the only enemies here. The enemies are our allies that were supposed allies that have been part of this whole package. And I have to agree with the ladies from Promethean Action that the UK establishment, the EU establishment, the global banking cartels are behind it as well. They're the ones that can fund these kinds of operations to cross destabilizing these governments. And they're the ones that help them stay in power. And there is an alliance between the WEF, which is the public arm of their financial actions that they want to do in the world, and the EU and the CCP are the alliance, even though China is kind of playing footsies with everybody. And I think that's kind of like when you really see the China is like, hey, we can be Russia's friend. We'll be Africa's friend. We'll be EU's friend. We'll be friends with you, America.
Well, Trump needs to bring him under control, obviously.
Well, and he is. And I think Xi's not an idiot. They're a country that are, arguably the world is really two superpowers right now.
Correct.
It's China and Russia, or sorry, China and the United States. Russia's not in that. The only reason why Russia gets named is because they got nukes. They have one of the largest nuclear arsenals in the world. Okay, so they could blow the world up 5 times over if they wanted to. So they're at the table just because of that. But China is the emerging power. India is the other one that's rising.
Yeah, well, this BRICS, right?
So India, but India is not a friend of China either. They're a major competitor of China. So I don't know if that's I think I would more go on the idea of that. No, I don't think Trump wants to see that the United States runs all of these countries like Venezuela. The whole point is, yes, it's a power play. It's a flex on the world. It does have an impact on OPEC because, the floodgates start to open. But a lot of these countries need to make money off that oil too. So they can't sell it for $1. I mean, that whole concept of doing that would collapse an entire side of the economy. You don't want to do. I don't agree that it's a reestablishment of the petrodollar. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Trump, and this is my opinion, because he's been flexing a lot on currencies since he's come in. He's talked about, he's played around with crypto. He's making motions about metals. Metals are going through the roof. I think you may see a reconstitutionalizing of the US dollar, which would cause the Federal Reserve to go absolutely ballistic. But because of that international connection of those banking cartels are so intertwined, I think the United States has no choice to take back their currency from those guys. They're too heavily manipulated on globalists. And the Federal Reserve either gets in line or they're going to be moved out of the way. And I know they're incredibly powerful, but it's a different era now. The United States isn't in a financial turmoil at the moment. And on that side, I think they're building. They've got the mineral structures. They've got the drive to build massive amounts of infrastructure to facilitate the industrialization of North and South America. All of that's going to come in play, I think. But I just think he was a little short-sighted on that video. I think it's a bigger picture than that. And I think currency is going to be the biggest player there is, because currency is how you dominate how you make a prosperous nation and keep it free. Is you have to maintain control of your currency. If your currency is owned by other countries, you've got a problem. And that's what the Federal Reserve System did. A reserve currency based on debt. It's enslaving your country by printing money so that China holds trillions of dollars of those Federal Reserve notes, Europe, whatever, everybody's got a piece of your action. If Trump was to turn around and say, we're done with the Federal Reserve, we're reconstituting the United States dollar, we're pegging it to whatever, gold, palladium, silver, metals, whatever. If it was anything, it was just real assets tied to
I think the Fed is going to be,
He's been wanting to audit the Fed for a long time.
Yeah, the Fed's in the crosshairs too. And so it's just a matter of when. But I think what we are seeing, you go in, taking out Maduro was massive. So now you got the liberation. Obviously, it's too big a place to administer. The United States is going to be the United States. Too much territory becomes more problematic and hard to administer. Heck, I mean, the U.S. is having a hard enough time. They're just now cleaning up Minnesota. Looks like they're going to go in and clean up California. Things are happening. Things are happening so extremely fast. One of the points, we got Rand Paul complaining about Maduro. Can we do a prisoner exchange with Rand Paul and Thomas Massey for this guy? Carolyn Levitt quoting Fetterman, if we didn't want Maduro removed, why did Biden have a bounty on him? So, I mean, it's pretty 1-to-1 from where he's going in.
Yeah. Well, and I think the issue with guys like, the problem with the libertarian wing, the purists, they're ingrained into their book of purity. Right. Sadly, the rest of the world doesn't play by that same rule.
Yes, I don't think they're pure. I think they're compromised. And I think
that may be so, but libertarians tend to get into this purity form that you isolate.
Yeah, you've got the blinders on, and
it's like with religious fundamentalists that they strain at a gnat and swallow a camel.
And they swallow a camel. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. What Ron Beaudry in our audience was just mentioning this. I guess a report came out. Rand Paul's name is on a list of politicians that receive funding from or kickbacks from Maduro's reign of terror. So there's trouble. Rand Paul is compromised. I think it's going to come out very clearly. We're going to see it. And this is a whole thing, Blake. I think this is a year where we start working the focus. I got a brand new camera here that I'm going to be working with. And we're going to, so we're focusing. Things are going to become a lot clearer. But talking about the lightning strike on things, check this. I love this line. Rapid Response 47 writes, winning a stunningly fast end of an era for public media. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump is moving at lightning speed. Operation Warp Speed you've heard of? Well, this is really it on steroids. Mixed metaphor, but it works. After nearly 60 years, the Corporation of Public Broadcasting has voted to dissolve itself. Ladies and gentlemen, PBS was a left-wing propaganda center. Trump took it out. It's gone. Let's make it big and play the clip.
A stunningly fast end of an era for public media. After nearly 60 years, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting has voted to dissolve itself, forced to take the drastic measure after the Republican-held Congress voted to defund it at the behest of Donald Trump. The private agency has steered federal funding to PBS, NPR, and hundreds of public television and radio stations across the country.
All right, so stunning in the speed that with which public broadcasting, a mainstay for decades, for generations.
Yeah.
Gosh,
I watched it.
Ernie. You love
Ernie. Sesame Street. I grew up with it.
You tell me how to get to Sesame Street. And and then Peter, Paul, and Mary, we're going to do a nice Christmas song. So all
I
this
learned
stuff,
how a bill gets passed into a law.
yeah, I enjoy being a bill, just a bill up on Capitol Hill. I'm just a bill. Schoolhouse Rock, but all that is gone, and it happened really quickly, and it needed to go because again, it was American dollars being used against the American people by leftist ideologues, and so I couldn't be happier. It's sad on some level because PBS did have some great broadcasting for the legitimate, but behind all that, there was a great darkness and a leftist propaganda. It had to go, and so I'm glad it is. It's over. It's done. Let's rebuild it at a later date, perhaps, but do it right and do it honestly, and minus the propaganda. I guess Ken Burns has just done a documentary on I think it's the Revolutionary War is the latest one, but it's just filled with propaganda, anti-American propaganda bullshit. So, something to avoid. Okay, let's keep going with the idea of what's going on with Greenland, and this is just a beauty clip I got here for us, Blake. This one I really enjoy. Ezra Levant from what's his media?
Rebel News.
Rebel News Media. Yeah. So he goes, Trump says, this is our hemisphere. Bob Ray, who's a former liberal minister, didn't he run for prime?
No, he was the NDP premier for Ontario in the 1990s.
He was an NDP guy for a while, but he ran for prime minister. Anyway, he's a big, long time swamp creature, a Canadian version. That's not how the world works, says Bob Ray. Maybe not in debate clubs like you, but the sky over Caracas it is. Canada has little military, diplomatic, or economic sway. Ray is partly responsible for us losing our power. And I just came in. You can, and I contradict Ray. I say you can unilaterally claim it if you can back it up. The USA can back it up. They just proved so in Venezuela. Canada doesn't even have a control over the province of British Columbia, according to UNDRIP. So, when Ray's talking about he can't unilaterally say this, it's not how the world works. Bob Ray is about to find out that this is exactly how the world works. Anything to add on Bob Ray's comments about Trump is not the way the world works?
Well, we know the United Nations has just become a cesspool run by globalist interests. And that's the thing is rules for you and not rules for me is the way those guys operate. And we've seen that. And the funny thing is in Canada is that the NDP and the Liberal Party of Canada are interchangeable. They're the same people. They can run in each other's parties, and to think that they're two separate parties blows my mind. One operates the management of the country, the other is the employees of the country. You've got the government unions in the NDP, and then you've got the management, the bureaucracy is the Liberal Party, who are all managed by who? The globalists running out of Europe, right? And that's why I said we've got the CCP, EU influence. So Bob Ray's one of the swamp creatures globally. International rule, if they actually believe that, a lot of them would be arrested today. Where is Trudeau and his whole cartel of cabinet ministers should be arrested on war crimes when they declared the Emergencies Act, which used to be called the War Measures Act, in Canada against truckers who were peacefully protesting. It was horrible. So why, and they send shock troops in, guys with boots and stomping on protesters, on horses, and that was, as I said, a real protest. And that's how you peacefully assemble and protest. And yet the ones that are burning our churches down, knocking our statues over, screaming, Hamas, 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 river to the sea people, daily we get them here. They can do whatever they want. They can do whatever violence they want. And not one of them lose their bank account, not one of them. And yet the courts ruled against them. And Bob Ray and his gang, all those guys are the same people. They just want to pretend that there is a sense of order that they're in control of. They're losing it fast. And I think this is when they're whining and they're showing that they're scared, it's their time is coming to short. You know what it really is? America and the Western colonial powers, because we were colonials all the way to Argentina, from north to the south, from the south to the north. We were all colonial countries built from Europe. We've all grown up. We're adults now. And I've got a message to those people in Europe. Fuck off. That's simply it. You fuck off, stay away, get out of our shit. We will trade with you, but we're not going to be allowed you to control us any further. And you can take your CCP foreign agents and fuck off with them too.
Well, Trump's the guy with the iron crowbar, and he's just prying their control and us out of their control. It's obvious for anyone willing to see it. We got local controversy on the Canadian front. I mean, we all knew this was happening anyway. It's not a surprise. Yeah. So my thoughts on what appears to be a failed attempt at luring another conservative into Carney's circus. The response letter was quite satisfying. Carney is wanting the current Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, this World Economic Forum creature, who's running the country. And we may find out how exactly he got to run the country with perhaps some information coming out of this Venezuela situation. Stay tuned to that. But I will say this, that I guess they tried to lure another conservative. So what he's doing, he doesn't have a majority. He's got a minority government. He wants to create a majority government so he can ramrod some of his policies through. He seems to be doing so because the conservatives are so corrupt themselves anyway. It's not really a big deal. They aren't slowing him down much on anything that I'm seeing. Having said that, he wants a majority, if only for optics' sake. And they've been reaching out to various conservatives to cross the floor, offering them presumably a little cash incentive to do so. One guy went public with it, said, I'm not going to be doing it. Good for him. Good for staying the course and not being bought off. But Canada, for all its part, is, basically we're a criminal organization. Canada is basically a criminal organization. I got yet another clip kind of pointing towards that. Again, I'm just trying to get through some of all this shit. Ryan Garrettson, the Canadian government has given the Ukraine $36.5 billion, some of the most money out of any single country. Way to go, Canada. I think per capita, we've supported the Ukraine more than any other nation. Now Freeland has been appointed as an economic advisor by Zelensky. It can be used to lobby for even more money from the godfather of her child, Carney, who was the economic advisor. See, it's all interconnected, right? Was then lobbying money for Brookfield. The media is silent, sees no problem with the continued circle jerk. This appointment is corruption at its finest. And this is the whole problem with Canada, is that it's become a criminal enterprise. And everybody kind of knows it up here.
Well, and it's an easy way to pay those people too. As I said, like these offshore bank accounts, you've known it for a long time. These liberals, these conservatives, whoever's in power, they don't see the money. They don't get the corruption transfer of wealth to them locally. It's done in these offshore bank accounts in the Grand Cayman Islands or Bermuda. Pick your offshore tax haven that nobody can see those accounts from, except for the elites that are paying you to do what you're doing. That conservative across the floor, same thing. He got a deal. Well, it's possible maybe his relatives got a gun to their head under the CCP, but all of these guys are working together. That's the problem. And there is people standing up now. And I think conservatives aren't bad people. And there may even be a handful of liberals that are MPs that aren't all bad either. They're just part of the machine, but they need to start taking stock of their soul now and realize, who do you work for? Choose this day which God you'll serve. That's what these people need to have, that coming to Jesus moment. You need to pick a side, because this is going to change your view on how world history and how your soul goes. But the corruption is so deep, as you said.
Yeah.
But this is what the problem is with this whole unraveling this horrible web. They're all interconnected. When you look at a spider web, it's all interconnected. These guys, these multinational corporations are owned by the BlackRocks, by those guys. Their central bankers are the ones that print the money to help them continue to buy up everything through pension funds, through all this stuff. They control you with this massive economic system that enslaves the world. And so I think that's what we're up against. Carney is just one of their guys that helps run it. And I think Carney, to him, this is just business. You know, this is just the way world runs. You get people to swing over and you give them a bit of money in the back. Yeah. And even Trump did that, right? We've got some information. I'm not saying Trump is doing it corrupt. I mean, they basically offered cash apparently to some of the generals in Venezuela and all that not to react. And they're just going to come and get Maduro. And that's literally why the Venezuelan army didn't mobilize against them. Oh, yeah. And they would have gotten beaten. But the fact is there wasn't a single soul from the U.S. forces that died or was killed or injured or any type of thing through that operation. That means people stood down.
Yeah, it's beautifully executed. I don't care. I don't give a fuck how they did it. The fact they did it is all I care about.
And I think that's the point, is that there's good actors and there's bad actors, and it can be used for good or can be used for bad. But the problem is Canada needs to grow up quick and realize that you're either you want to be a nation of laws, a nation of that basically exposes the same reasons why America exists.
Yeah, but that's going to be taken out of Canada's hands anyway.
Well, they're being told they're putting a wall around it. That Fortress North America is happening, if you like it or not. And
exactly.
These people are going to be kicking and screaming into freedom.
Boy. That's my Blake. That's what I want to hear. Hey, check this. This is all coming out, man. Canada has become a playground for the world's most dangerous criminals, granting visas to wanted Indian criminals, from India. Chinese narco groups laundering billions through the government-operated casinos and banks. CSIS and Toronto police believe Canadian politicians have been exposed to blackmail in criminal underground casinos. CBSA allegedly instructing officers to destroy evidence. A nation run by criminals for criminals. Let's let this young buck give us his take on it. All right, let's make him a little smaller so he all fits in. And
Canada has become a playground for the world's most dangerous criminals. But don't take my word for it. Here's the Minister of External Affairs from India.
Number of people with organized crime links from Punjab have been made welcome in Canada. We have been telling Canada, saying, look, these are wanted criminals from India. You have given them visas. They have come, many of them, in false documentation. And yet you allow them to live there. If you decide to import for political purposes people with very dubious, actually very negative background, there will be issues. They have, in some cases, created problems in their own country as a result of their own policies.
Now consider that crime from India pales in comparison to the threats posed by Chinese criminal organizations. These groups are cleaning billions of dollars in casinos.
Okay, so all I wanted there really was the Indian minister. But we understand. And so what happens? What is 2026? 2026 is not only the revelation and the pulling of the curtain back on the corruption in Minnesota, California, but also in nation states outside of the United States of America, notably Canada. And we're looking worse and worse because you've got Carney talking about his coalition of the willing. And I've got yet another clip, to no one's surprise, Blake, the coalition of the willing. But check this cat talking about the coalition of the willing. And of course, it follows on the heels of peace, a peace deal imminent. We're kind of in the end maneuvering of peace and the end to the Ukraine war. One of the predictions we made, it may be happening quicker than you or I realized. Certainly we had the UN ambassador, U.S. ambassador to the UN talking about it earlier in the program. Here we go.
We want to be ready so that when diplomacy reaches peace, we can place the forces of the coalition of the willing. The details will be set out in other documents. We're working on which countries are willing to contribute and guarantee security in the air, at sea, and on land. We are assessing which forces are necessary, who will be able to, who shall want to be ready so that when diplomacy reaches peace.
Okay,
Yeah.
diplomacy reaches peace. So he's starting to talk that way. I think the countdown is on in that war, in that conflict. But we're hearing that familiar statement. It was used also by the U.S. ambassador to the UN. He was saying the coalition of the willing. We got Mark Carney talking about the coalition of the willing. Now we've got Zelensky, the coalition of the willing. I believe, Blake, this is the bone that Trump is willing to throw the West, and Putin himself is willing to throw them the bone, this coalition of the willing. But it's going to have a muzzle on it. It's going to have shackles all over it. It's not NATO. It's not going to have any teeth. And obviously Canada, being part of the coalition, and the money launderer, they're still got their eye on their corruption and all, with Chrystia Freeland going over as a quote financial ambassador.
Yeah. Well, and I think
he doesn't even have an economic degree. Go ahead.
Well, it essentially, I mean, this is again how corrupt Canada's become. Any other time in history, you and I know 10 years ago or further, before this criminal element has taken over Canada's governing, taken over the Liberals as well. The Liberals have been problem, but I've never seen anything more corrupt than this group. That literally they can do corruption every day, and the media doesn't do anything about it. The opposition party talks about it, but nothing ever comes about it. It used to be these people would resign in shame, and they would be fired or resign in shame,
like
and they'd
Tim
be
Walz
tossed
in
out.
Minnesota has had to step down.
Exactly, but there's no shame in them because they feel they are above the law. They don't need to adhere to the law because who's protecting them? The EU, the WF, and I would suggest everybody, if we could put the link up somehow for them to take it, is that link to the Promethean report that just came out about Carney in Canada after the Venezuela, is because she lays it out perfectly. Who is behind all of this and why? Carney answers to the London, which is the WF financial elite. That London is the financial capital of the world. Everything runs through London. He is one of their people. And that's the WF is that cartel of central bankers that operate out of London and have all their little offices around the world. And we talk about the Indian cabinet minister talking about the crime. The crime syndicates around the world are being allowed to operate because they are making billions, if not trillions of dollars for these offshore banking cartels run by the central banking in these offshore islands like Grand Caymans, Bermuda, wherever. There's lots of them around the world. And they basically are run by this old established order. And that's who's behind all this. And I think this war is going to come to a close. I think Trump says I think Trump's behind the scenes. I'm sure he's saying this. I don't want a war anymore. American troops aren't going to die on the ground there anymore. Europe, you're on your own. If you want to keep doing this, and we may have to back Putin, and you may not like that. We're not going to send troops to Russia, but we're going to go hands off. Okay, you guys can do whatever you want. But I know what Trump's concerned about. He wants America's money back. That's his whole thing all the time. We've spent billions and billions of dollars giving it to the Ukrainians to fight an endless war. And his whole point is, I want that money back for the American taxpayer. And that's the correct position, because he knew Biden was operating under a corrupt class of global elites that were siphoning money out of the U.S. to fund their European proxy wars so Europe could expand its borders eastward. And, that Promethean report is great because it opens the doors to understanding how the WF operates and who's really the ringleaders behind it, because it is that elite. And we need to focus in on that. And I hate to say it, because I kind of grew up thinking that, James Bond was the good guy, right? And maybe this has been all part of this British propaganda for years to tell us to maintain us loyal to the empire. And you know what? When you're a dying empire, you're a dying empire. And, those colonials, all of us that live in the colonial countries of the world, are supposed to go, yeah, they're great. They're our heroes. Well, they're siphoning for us. And quite frankly, I don't think Canada would ever have been a free country if the US didn't form into a free country. We've created the illusion of it, because if we ever were an authoritarian regime, and since America is rebounding, going down that path, and America's going, we're back as the freest nation on earth. We're the shining city on the hill. We're back to that path. Canada has no choice but to do that, and we're always 2 years behind. But I think the illusion that we've been under growing up, I'm really starting to see that, was all propaganda. It was to stay loyal to the empire, a dying empire that lost World War I, and after World War I, they were finished. And they drained their resources, but they moved a lot of their capital and their protection on manipulating the United States. And that's the point I think she's been making in Promethean Action, is exactly that point, is that the United States has been manipulated by Great Britain to be the police force, the brute guy that's going to go out and beat people up for them around the world, and being dragged into all these wars. The whole Middle Eastern disaster is from the European colonial controls of the Middle Eastern countries, and carving them up on not natural boundaries they used to have before. And then
they did the same thing in the Balkans, and they reaped the same reward out of that. The Balkans became a tinderbox.
But I'm not saying it's the British people, because I think the British people are in their own fight for liberty and freedom right now. And I think they'll win it. I think with Trump being on the US side and MAGA strengthening the Western Hemisphere, Britain would be a natural country to join in on that, because we share the same values.
Well, it's got to be liberated. We've all been captured. The Commonwealth all got captured. So some of the most dictatorial, autocratic, and controlled entities in the world right now, Australians we've showed it here on this channel, where people are getting the knock on the door.
And what is the connection to that? What's the connection? The crown. These are all crown colonies.
Well, of course, because they're all Commonwealth.
And even India, right, was formerly a Commonwealth, but they became a republic. And the Brits kind of, I think, see them as that. But I think that's the thing, is that Britain, at least, I think, had a sense of honor, and there was a rooted system. But as you said, they become corrupted by aligning with this mix out of the European Union. Once it became part of the European Union, it had this a globalist kind of viewpoint, corporatist, fascist mixture using Marxism. And I mean, it's just authoritarianism in all its worst forms being utilized to expand its tentacles around the world. And I think that's kind of what's happened to Britain. Britain is, and as I said, that video kind of opened my eyes to that. I was thinking, okay, I don't see Britain as an enemy yet, but they're darn close.
But I see our own government as an enemy.
But I see them as an extension of them. That's the problem. And they've got hundreds of years of manipulating countries to benefit them. They were the Roman Empire before the Americans rose up.
And the autocratic nature of government and the overreach is becoming more pronounced and more evident every day. Folks, I was telling Blake, Blake ran across one of my posts. I didn't even talk to him about it. I just put it out on the X platform. I was doing a little wheeling and dealing on Marketplace. I had a chair that was here for a lot of the program, and I sold this chair, right? And then I had an old camera that I took to Europe with on a vacation. I sold that. So I had a little coin from this. And I go to my bank a couple of days ago. I think it was just 2 days ago. And, I come in there with a handful of money, and they go, "Where's this money from?" I go, "What?" But I knew what they were asking. But this is the first time it's ever happened to me. Now, I've heard it happen with other institutions. BMO had been pretty good for the most part, but it's the first time they had to ask you. And then Sue was with me, and she goes, "Well, do we have to tell you?" And then so, "No, you don't have to. You can, refuse to do that." I go, "Sue, there's a catch. If you don't tell them where you put it, they're going to take note in their database that you refuse to divulge where you got that cash from." So my advice, we'll just tell them we did it. We sold some shit on Marketplace that we had, which is one of the categories. So it's one of those, you're free not to answer the question.
That's right.
there may be consequences, Monsieur. And so it was unbelievable. It was offensive. Every instinct in my body and my psyche rebelled against it because it's the state prying into, and ostensibly under the guise of, it comes under the Patriot Act, actually, from
it's true.
from 9/11, where, and money laundering. And I go, we've just read right on this program evidence where Chrystia Freeland is a member of parliament, also working for Zelensky, who's embroiled with some of his top advisors in corruption and money laundering. And they're worried about me selling my little item, my little chair on frickin' thing. Ladies and gentlemen, they are a voracious, ravenous, unrepentant, all-consuming evil, and I can call it nothing other than that, pure evil. And it's none of your fucking business where I got my money from. I sold some shit. I'm not drug dealing. I'm innocent until I'm innocent until.
Well, it's not the bank.
Found
it's
out
not
to be
the
guilty.
And it's not the bank's job to act as the enforcement for.
But they're
the
getting
government.
pressure.
They're
You know how
private.
it works, Blake.
Well, it's
Blake,
law.
You did, yeah. You put it out very nicely. So the government is twisting the arms of the central banks, and the banks are having to comply with it, and so they invade. But it happened to me. It happened personally, and I tell you, man, every instinct in me rebelled against.
And they keep lowering the threshold on numbers. For a while it was 4,000 cash.
This was well under 4,000,
and then they dropped it to 2,500, and then
I believe it's 1 cent now. There is if you have any figure, whatever it is, they can ask you.
But you know where is, you're right. If you say I'm not going to disclose it, you go right on the list through FinTrack. FinTrack is the Canadian version of tracking funds of where it came from, and they report it that you put in cash.
Wouldn't say.
And then you know who gets that information? The RCMP, CRA. It's all shared with them. And next thing you know, you're getting an audit for your taxes. You're going to get all this. They want to look at everything. And they're not supposed to be working for the government. That's not the job of the banks. They don't.
It is now under a godless criminal organization like the government of Canada. It sure the fuck is. And we've got legislation coming down to shut the hell out of programs like this and voices like yours, Blake, and voices like mine.
Well, and we know where this is all leading, and this is why they want the central bank digital currency, so that we move to digital ID. Digital currency. Nothing will be traded privately. Everything you do will be public, and your freedom to associate will be spied on. It's already been done through Facebook and other apps, stuff like that. They know who you hang your hats with. They can see that. But it's interesting. I'm hoping Trump's successful. Obviously, he's made a message. I was watching one I think last night, where he basically said, the 2026 midterms this is it. This is why the globalists are in Canada. They're waiting it out. They're not negotiating a Trump deal for trade. They're not going to be part of that. They're waiting to see what happens in the 2026 midterms. But with all this election fraud coming out now, I think Maduro's going to sing like a bird. Because, obviously he was making bank, and apparently he was offered bank from, if you listen to Rubio, he was offered opportunities to just step down, but somebody must have been offering him more money for him to stay.
Trump told him. Trump told him in a speech, he goes, "You can leave now, go and enjoy a nice retirement. But if you don't, it won't go well for you. You make that call."
That video where he's like flexing the Maduro's like, come here, come and meet me outside.
That's gorgeous. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see,
knock.
Did you see Pato or whatever from Colombia is talking big too? Colombia, he's going, "Come and get me, mother."
Oh, but he even said something worse. He made the gesture to take him out. That's how you deal with Trump. Take him out. He's threatening to take Trump's life.
Oh,
that's how you stop him. I'm like,
it's not going to end well for little Pato.
No,
it's not going to end well.
But what's really cool when you watch Trump now, because Trump doesn't have to run an election anymore. So he's not election Trump. He's calm, cooled, and whenever he speaks, he doesn't have to go and do a fiery speech. He just says, that's what's happening. And that's it. Very calm, no emotion, purely calm in his actions now, because he knows exactly where he's headed. And I think it's great to see that, because the world is now trembling, right? It's the global elites know that they're not in charge anymore and that they're on the retreat. So I'm hoping we're going to see all of this stuff, the election, because that affects us here. British Columbia, we have our own election fraud stuff. The Remanded's doing it. I hope it all comes out in the U.S. because Remanded, I see them he's posting now in the U.S. He's raised money, but the Dominion voting tabulators, there's some really
Dominion.
odd
We got
stuff.
Dominion up here too.
Well, only in British Columbia, and Evie was who brought it in.
I had to go through one with the last election.
Yeah. And they're being used at a municipal account elections now and all that. So they can cheat at all levels, and it's being shown. So it'll be interesting to see if it exposes it fully. Then BC, we could wipe these Marxists out of power, you know, legally, without having to have some foreign power.
I just believe that 26, the scales are dropping from the people's eyes. There'll be no more. In Minnesota already, they got 2,000 agents have just swooped in and they're doing spot checks. They're making arrests right now. And then Trump's already said, we've got California in our sights. We're going to be investigating. There is an investigation on in California. Meanwhile, in Florida, we've got a grand jury impaneled looking at Jack Smith and Clapper and Comey and all those criminals. It's going to get to a point, I believe, where the Democrats, there will no longer be an option of plausible deniability open to them. It's just going to be open and exposed. We all had this kid, Nick Shirley, take down Tim Walz. The corruption was exposed so powerfully that Walz, the guy who was scheduled to be the vice president of the United States of America, had to stop campaigning and end any effort to seek re-election as the governor of Minnesota, because the corruption, it's all being pulled up. That rotten, infested carpet of corruption is being pulled up, and everybody is being able to see the filth underneath it. And that stops with him. That guy's going to jail. That's my prediction on Tim Walz. That idiot, that criminal. We're going to turn the page. We're going to turn the page on Tim Walz.
Well, and I think once they do, I think that whole thing is going to go across the entire Western world, and even South America, everywhere is going to start to that whole scam that's been running for a while now is going to be revealed. And America, of course, is the first one to blast it wide open, and Trump's going to do it. And I think MAGA, as I predicted, will finally come together. The call is to unite and those that are the agents of disruption to try and stop it. They're going to be exposed who they are, and it's already beginning to happen.
Well, like Bongino's having a huge Twitter war or an X platform war with Matt Gaetz.
Yeah,
and if I was to shake the dice and blow on it, my money's with Dan Bongino. I think Gates has got problems. And there's a lot of guys like that seem to talk the right talk, but when the push comes to shove, they Marjorie Taylor Greene themselves right out of legitimate.
Yeah, they're either they're paid assets, or they are, to disrupt, or their egos are too big to somebody to say, well, you're wrong, and admit when you're wrong. Right. And but I saw Trump had a Newsom in his, you were mentioning earlier, he made a tweet about it.
Yeah, Newsom's gone down. Newsom's going down.
News scum, he called him.
Yeah, I love this temp on Tim. He had to lure a tough lesson. Of course, the Leering Center in Minnesota that came under scrutiny.
Well, it might be part of it. Maybe that's what they do. They were training other Muslims there to train them to leer at people, because
you're bad.
Leer at them.
Yeah, intimidation tag. Well, listen, folks, what are we at here? We're at 1:14. That's a good show. There's so much stuff we got lined up here. By the way, here's another FAFO. The Hilton Hotel that we're not going to have ICE agents stay at the hotel, Hilton Hotel. Hilton headquarters got word of this, and we got a disaster, a PR disaster on our hands. No, we're going to get our asses boycotted if we allow this to stand. So they removed the franchise, the Hilton name, from that particular hotel that was saying we're not going to allow ICE agents to stay here. They disavowed it. They made a public press release. I had it queued up here. It's not important to see it. The point is that hotel is no longer associated with the whole Hilton hotel chain, and you can't find them on any of their web pages. They are persona non grata.
Well,
Hilton powerfully and demonstrably stepping back and disavowing that particular franchise. Go ahead.
I just want to point something out.
Yeah.
This is the problem, and you may see this spill out into corporations versus the asset managers, because it's the asset managers who own most of the hotel real estate and call the shots. That's why they can disconnect them and say, well, they're not a franchisor on their own. Hilton might not have been, it wasn't the problem in this case, as in the corporation. So don't blame Hilton, but the local owner of the hotel calls the shots if they say they're doing that. And a lot of those hotel real estate are owned by union pension funds that have invested in hotel real estate, hospitality real estate, and they're run typically by their pension fund managers, whichever. It could be a BlackRock, could be something like that. I don't think BlackRock would be that stupid, but I think that, but if you look behind the scenes, who owns that hotel? I'd love to see that exposed, because then you'll start to see the chains of all that side of it. Oh, it is because maybe the public service unions of Minnesota have invested and own the real estate ground there, and that's how the union activists work within the corporate structure, is through that asset management ownership tool, because they own it.
Okay, I can't resist. Yeah. I got it. One more to go. Wait a minute. Yeah. I got one more, like Bugs Bunny. I got one more.
Got one more.
Okay, here we go. Holy smokes, this is great. This is Ricky Gervais on X. Tony asked, hey, Ricky Gervais, will you do some venues in Greenland on your next American tour? After I've played the state of Canada, yeah. And there you go, Tony having a good time with that. He's going to Venezuela first. Ricky Gervais getting in on all the fun that is associated. But, you know, underneath that humor, on a serious note, it really is domino theory in reverse. I think Blake's vision that it's not going to be, you know, Venezuela is not going to be a 51st state, that they're going to have their own autocratic control, but they're going to be under the sphere of American influence. There is going to be an American protectionist zone, and the tripartite division of the body politic on planet Earth is pretty much looking like it's looking in that little graphic that was shown earlier. Trump, me.
I think NATO will be finished. I think we're going to see Fortress North and South America, and we will have a NATO-like force for the Western Hemisphere, because I think that is the world, as you said, that tripartite world now, where you have Russia's sphere of influence and Europe kind of in that area, and then you have Asia, right, and their influence, and then you'll have me, Trump.
I like this question. Yeah, we'll stay a little longer just to answer this question, because it's an important question. It's topical. I'll take it first, and I'll leave it with Blake for the final word on the program. Do you think Alberta will leave Canada? I don't think they're going to have to. I think all this economic pressure with Greenland's coming into American influence. Whether it's going to have an American flag on it, I don't know how it's going to flesh itself out, but it's going to be American. It's going to be, there's no doubt it's going to be American sovereign territory. End of story. Canada is going to fall under American influence, whether it falls like a Venezuelan kind of thing, like Blake is pointing, where we got our own autonomy, but we're a good friend and we're totally, just tight like you can't possibly. We're spooning America, where you get we're so cute together. So Alberta may not have to leave. They're going to do their referendum. I'm predicting the Canadian government, no matter what happens, I think there's going to be problems. They're already talking about infiltrating and getting false petitioners to go to the door for signatures and then throw the signatures out that they get by having counterfeit signature gatherers. There's a lot of dirty politics going on here, right? Dirty work.
Yeah.
So I don't think Alberta's going to have to leave at the end of the day. The way I'm feeling right now with Greenland, Venezuela, it changed the picture on things for me. So I'm picturing it more as Canada just has no choice but to knuckle under and get yourself in line. And the asset managers and its ties and loyalty to the United Kingdom are going to be completely severed as we fall under American sovereign control. We're going to be economically broken by the Americans. They will bring us to our knees. They got the means to do so with the oil. Carney's talking magic tricks, saying that, oh, well, we've got non-carbon based oil. Like, we've got green energy.
I saw that. That was insane.
I mean, it's just not, it makes no sense at all.
It's healthy oil.
So
Drink
Blake,
it.
Blake, what's your thought on Alberta and Ron's great question? Do you think Alberta?
Well, 2026 is the year they're going to have a referendum at the end of it. It'll be right at the time that the midterms are happening. I posted a response to that specific question, and I said that Alberta is going to be a hotbed of corruption for this, as you just laid out. The globalists will send in all their disrupting agents and all their assets in there, and they will do everything in their power to cause chaos, false voting, mass citizenry, all these so-called
division of personalities within the interested party.
Well, I can guarantee there's going to be a lot of new Canadian citizens being allowed to become Canadian citizens overnight, and who are in Alberta right now, who are all from all these other countries or on foreign worker visas and stuff like that. But then, if they allow, and my point is, America is going to need to be there on the ground as election observers, and that's how you shut those guys out. And Trump saying, I'll be watching this. My people are going to be there as observers. Alberta government should welcome them in to be observers to make sure there's no shenanigans, because the shenanigans go on. Let's face it, Alberta is almost equal to the size of Saudi Arabia in oil reserves. It is massive. And tied to that is Saskatchewan next door, which has massive reserves of potash, lithium, and of course, it's a breadbasket area. And then you've got British Columbia, again, access to the ports, oil. We have oil on our coast. We have all this. So Alberta is the first domino to go. Will they succeed? Well, put it this way: if the midterms go sideways, I think Alberta will vote to succeed. If the midterms don't, Alberta won't need to, as you said. Because what will happen if they embolden the globalists? Trump's still the president of the United States. They're going to go at him hard if they win the midterms.
He's going to be impeached immediately. And
they'll call him a criminal. There'll be all these trumped up charges.
Yeah,
and all
he's going to be bowed down the rest.
And that's why I think there's it's amazing. It is amazing time to be alive if you see the world as we're describing it. It's all of these moving parts happening at once. This is the realignment of the geopolitical world, and it's not the old world we had 5 years ago. Yeah. And this is the pushback to fight for freedom, fight for individual rights. When you see people like the globalists are installing like a Mamdani in New York, who's basically the David Eby of New York. Everything he said is David Eby. He's just a more likable personality.
If you want to know about New York, it's Canada. Basically, that Mamdani idiot wants to make New York Canada.
Or I would call it even more refined. He wants to do the British Columbia of New York, because everything they're saying is what David Eby and NDP do. They talk the same.
It's just communism.
But they're inputs. These people are planned inputs to disrupt, because they know the worldwide they can't ever exist unless there's going to be a communist revolution worldwide. But the point is, I think that Alberta is the linchpin. If it falls, and I'm saying for Canada, and goes to the independence movement and becomes the true 51st state of the United States, or a territory of the United States, Canada in the West is finished, and then the East will fall behind it. It's just There's no more reason for Canada to exist with some weird block of it pulled out. Once it loses its oil revenue, Canada has nothing else. It has lots of mineral resources. It has the North, but if the U.S. takes Greenland and Greenland becomes US, guess what? America's influence over the Arctic Passage now is finished. Fini. They've got it. They've got total control on both sides of the axis through.
And look at Canada. So we got America to the south, America on the right, America to the left of me, America to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle again.
Well,
and this is completely surrounded by the United States.
Well, this is a critical point because everybody's been told a bunch of BS about climate change, that climate change is human caused, blah, blah, blah. It's not about climate change as a natural changes, but climate change applied to humans causing the change. The Arctic has become, they know that we're in what we went through, what's called the Little Ice Age. 1,000 years ago, it was a lot warmer. And then all of a sudden we had what they called the Little Ice Age, where things got really cold for a few hundred years. And we're now back into the warming trend, which we were 1,000 years ago. Apparently, historically, 1,000+ years ago, they could grow grapes in Norway at one point. That's how warm Europe got that long ago. So at this point, with they knowing full well that that whole sphere up northern part of the Arctic world is going to warm up, it's going to open up islands, minerals, oil, and trade, because you could now pass ships through there. They knew this. So think about this, people, this whole climate change crap, which has really been pushed on really the Western free world, which centers a lot around the Arctic. That's why China has got claims on the Arctic now, and they're not even an Arctic country.
Yeah, I know.
Russia's an Arctic country.
Russia's got
Canada, the United States with Alaska is. If they and of course Europe is an Arctic country. So we have this Arctic trade routes that can go up and over, no problem. Once the world warms up to its natural state, where the ice isn't freezing up for most of the year, they will be at trade, mineral exploration, oil extraction. It's going to be massive, and they know it. And I think that's why we've been sold this bill of goods, and then why they want to take control of Canada. Canada's the battleground for that, because we have claims all the way to the Arctic
it's
Circle.
part of our contiguous landmass.
But you think of Greenland's on one side, Alaska's on the other. Well, guess what? Who controls now all the trade on both sides of it?
Yeah.
It's like two gates. Canada, you're no longer in control of that.
I think Trump is showing his hand with Venezuela and the way he's talking about Greenland. And just today, breaking news, Greenland has asked to speak with Secretary of State Rubio. They need to talk to him because they know the writing's on the wall. Look out. Greenland, Trump even called it about 20 days time. We'll talk about Greenland. So Trump's got a plan. There is a plan, and Greenland's part of it. And when Greenland goes, Canada's going to tumble soon after. I can't see it standing apart.
Well, Canada can't control the North anymore. There's no longer the North. What do they got? NORAD will just be America Rad. I mean, that's essentially it. So.
Well, and that by doing that, of course, Chuck, and I know you're a clear thinking individual. Once you change it to climate change, then it means nothing. You can say anything about it. Oh, that's just climate change. The climate changed. Oh, okay. What's the temperature today? It rained yesterday. It's sunny today. You know what that is? That's climate change. Your climate changed. All right. Enough about that. It's just nonsense. Blake, I want to thank you again for bringing some great viewpoint analysis knowledge to some great questions and some really interesting developments in the world and here at home in Canada. It's crazy. Buckle up, everybody, is the advice. Hang on. There's going to be more turbulence and bumps in the road ahead.
Well, just like we were saying, we could have had probably 3 hours of material today on what happened this weekend. I just found 15 more of those things I had lined up. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be back at 4:00 Pacific, 7 Eastern for my music show. I got a guitar, I got speakers, I like records, and we do a music show which is non-political. Obviously, politics come in occasionally, but the thrust
the main raison d'etre is more about music, and we have some fun. And it's really a comedy show the way I handle it. I try and make it funny. Blake, thanks again. And we're going to see you here on Ghost Town Politics and the Political Nooner on Friday, 12 noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. Thanks, everybody. Really nice to see Rock and Ronnie with us today. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you Friday.